Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today we've reached a new frontier. What does that mean in layman's terms? We fixed our Frontier chainsaw. I've never had one of these before, and so I always thought they were kind of a neat little saw. So anyway, I did a little research on the history on them and whatnot, and talk about how we got the saw a number of videos ago. Mr. C brought over a small wheelbarrow full of little nipper chainsaws, mostly home lights. This, the Frontier, and also the wood carp Pullen wood shark. That's on May 24th of this year, 2022. So anyway, these little saws are made in BC, Canada, or as I call it, Canada. That sounds more exotic. And the first one they did was a Mark I. That was in 1971. And the thing that was interesting is that there was a built-up market for these little saws, and others weren't really doing a good job in Canada. And so in 4 months they sold 10,000 of them. And so they were doing really well for a while, and later on they had some problems with getting castings and different things and got into financial trouble and reorganized and sold out. But anyway, this particular model, I got bugs bugging me here, but this is a 1979 model F35. These are 33, I should say 36 cc or 2.2 cubic inch, weighs 6.6 pounds, and they were basically just designed for the home market, but they became very popular for arborists doing entry work. There was a big market for them, and of course then they were used for light commercial stuff for cutting pulpwood, and then the main market of course was for the homeowner, which they were quite successful at. But anyway, they marketed them under a whole bunch of different names, and they supplied them to a lot of different companies. And it was like they sold them to Husqvarna, Partner, and a bunch of others, and a lot of private labels. Pioneer was another one, Partner, like I say. But anyway, they were very popular, and then when they got into real trouble, they were bought out by Electrolux, which was the company that owned Husqvarna, Pullen, and Pioneer, and Partner. And so they made them until 1970 or 1993, and so they have a little niche in history, looks like a lot of other little saws. You know, they're real compact and kind of different looking, little neat looking little saws. This one they quit using it because the kill switch here had broken. Darn bugs. Anyway, it wasn't repairable, so I found a handle on Fleabay, and it looked identical, but internally it was different, so I had to mix and match parts out of the stuff I bought plus the saw I had here, and was able to finish fixing it up. So anyway, we'll take it out and do a little nipping with it here, but the chain on it is exceptionally wore out. I've sharpened it and stuff, so we'll do a little bit of cutting, but once a new chain comes in for it, we'll take it out and we'll drop a tree and put it to do some real work with it. But today we're just going to go out and do some light nipping and see how it does. So we'll be right back. Okay, well, we got a little log here, about 5-incher. So I'll get the saw warmed up and be right back. Well, for a little nipper, it cuts pretty good. Whatever ick was in the mufflers coming out, I didn't clean it yet. I inspected it for carbon, didn't have any, but the old oil in there is coming out. But anyway, Another fine piece of junk in the collection. So now we're going to come back and talk about lawnmower for a little bit. Well, a lot of my things that I've drug home have a story behind them, and this mower is one of them. I'd gone to a town about 25 miles away, and it was a hot day and stuff, so I stopped at a gas station, grocery, junk food store, and got me a drink. It had orange juice and carrot juice. It's really tasty and stuff, but man, it really goes through you quick. So anyway, I was about halfway home, and there's a long wooded area, so I needed to stop and water the bushes. So I pulled off the road there and walked over to a private area there and stuff, and there was these poor little bushes there. It looked like they're really thirsty, so I gave them a little flavoring there and stuff. They say urine's good for plants and also really good for composting. So anyway, while I was there, there was some butthead had thrown a bunch of junk out, and there was no couch and a big old box TV and a couple of bags of trash and stuff, and this lawnmower was sitting there laying upside down. So I went over and looked at it a little bit, and turned over and had compression. Everything was pretty much on it. So I threw it in the back of my truck and brought it home, and a couple of days later I decided, well, let's see if I can get that thing to run. So what was wrong with it was the fuel tank had a crack on it, and I didn't have a tank for it, so I was going to go to the local Briggs dealer and buy one. But a few months earlier, Mr. C's father-in-law had passed away, and he used to work on small engines and stuff, and Mr. C invited me over and said, hey, just had a big yard sale, and there's some stuff left over, and there's some small engine parts out in the shed here you can have. So I went out, and there was like 3 boxes of stuff. There was Brick and Stratton and Tecumseh parts and a few other odds and ends, and in there was 3 gas tanks. So I brought them home, and I went out in the garage and grabbed one, and it fit right on there. You can see it's not an exact match because it doesn't have the cover and stuff here over the carburetor, but works, and that's all that's important. And so anyway, blade on it was pretty well wore out, so had spark, and carburetor had some water in it and stuff. So I took the float bowl off and cleaned it, and put a new air filter in it, new spark plug, and changed the oil, and it runs really, really good. It's like 35 years old, and I've had it at least 15 years or more. And the key to operating and making these old lawnmowers last, a couple of things. And all my small engines over the years, I've always used high quality oil. And the problem with the new automotive oils is they don't have zinc in them anymore, and these need the zinc additive in them. So what I do is I use 10% STP by volume. It has zinc in it, and also keeps the viscosity of the oil really good when they get hot. These little engines on a hot day can run really, really hot. The other alternative is that you can buy specific 4-stroke oil from Honda, Briggs. This is Craftsman oil and stuff, but it's like $8 a quart. And so, like I say, you can just use regular motor oil and 10% of this and do the same thing. Another thing on these plastic wheels get real sloppy and wore out. People think since they're plastic they don't need any lubrication, but that's not right. So I'm going to get my shadow out of the way here. So use motorcycle chain lube and put it on here. See how smooth that runs out now? Make these things last just about forever. And so with the spark plug, your air filter, and a float bowl gasket, and a new blade, I get about 20 bucks in it. So it cost me the big sum of about $1.50 a year to own it. So anyway, you can see I've got a stick in here to hold the discharge chute cover open. And the reason for that is the grass here is really tough and it's been really wet. And this is a mulching mower, which means that it shreds it up and goes back down into the lawn, which acts like plant food, but what it does, it just blocks it up and slows the motor down and stuff like that. So I always run it with this open. You got to remember, real early lawnmowers just had a straight opening, so everything rocks, everything goes flying out of them. So this works. And then safety first, always wear these. But anyway, having these old mowers and stuff, basically if you keep the deck from rusting out, I don't think you can really wear them out. I change the oil twice a year. That's another thing, because the additives in the oil for the anti-foaming, anti-scuff, when they get real hot it dissipates, and so with fresh oil in it all the time, all that stuff is working to keep that old motor going. So anyway, just some lawnmower tips for you. You know, I talked in the last video about the difference between a purge valve and a primer. This doesn't have a choke. Just has this little primer bulb right here, like about 6 times. What that does is it squirts a little mist into the throat of the carburetor, so it basically lightly floods the carburetor. Take your brake off here, and most of the time it starts on one pull. Can't beat that. So anyway, just a few tips on how to keep your old junk in operation. One more we bought when I was a kid from Monkey Boards. We used it for 35 years. Had a 3.5 or 3 horsepower Briggs, I forget which now, on the same basic engine design as this. But the deck finally rotted out. The motor still ran good, and so I put it on another piece of equipment and used it for years after that. So the modern stuff, 3 years or something, they're done for. The parts prices are stupid too on them, so plus they're hard to work on. So antique junk is for me. So we'll see you in the next video. Remember, vintage is best.